All right, so you may or may not know this, but the goal of most arguments, well, it's not to win, right? It's actually a neurological trap. See, the moment you feel attacked, your rational brain, which is your prefrontal cortex, goes offline. Your amygdala, the emotional part, that takes over. And this is what's called the amygdala hijack. You're not thinking, you're reacting. But what if you could flip a switch, not on the person you're arguing with, but on yourself? Hi, I'm Alan Stafford. As a certified neuroscience coach and an analytics professional, I don't teach magic words. I teach practical neuroscience-backed tools. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share 4 principles to reclaim control of your brain so you can, well, calmly guide the conversation rather than participate in an argument. And I'm going to show you how I use them in a high-stakes conflict that was about to basically turn personal. So my story begins with a high-stakes planning meeting with a colleague of mine at a previous job in the past. We'll call him Mark. See, a major project was at risk, and the tension in the room, well, it was just palpable. I mean, you could cut through it with a knife. It was high. And during my presentation of the data, Mark interrupted me. He wasn't just disagreeing. He was launching a personal attack, which is an ad hominem or a logical fallacy that occurs when someone tries to discredit an argument by attacking the character, motive, or other attributes of the person making that argument, rather than addressing the argument's substance itself. So Mark said, "This isn't just wrong, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of the problem. Frankly, I'm stunned this is what you're bringing us." The entire room went silent. You could hear a pin drop, to use that analogy. See, I can feel it, the flush in my face, the adrenaline, my brain was screaming, "Fight!" Every instinct told me to list his recent failures as well. But I didn't. I took the high road. I recognized the amygdala hijacked. Instead of reacting, I acted. And the first thing I did was use the principle of validation. See, validation is not an agreement, folks. This is the biggest mistake people make. Validation it is a verbal all clear to the other person's amygdala. It's a signal that says, hey, I'm not a threat to you. So as a neuroscience coach, I teach this as the first step. See, when a person feels heard, their threat level or their threat response basically lowers, and their prefrontal cortex, that's the rational part of the brain, can come back online. So in that room, I paused, I took a breath, I looked at Mark and said, hey.
It sounds like you believe this plan is a massive risk and you're deeply concerned about the direction we're taking. Is that right?
See, I wasn't agreeing with his attack. I was validating the emotion behind the attack. He was completely disarmed. He was forced to basically stop his attack and simply say, yeah, that's right. See, our brains are wired for tribalism, us versus them. Conflict immediately frames the situation as me versus you. See, this principle, shared identity, intentionally reframes it as us versus the problem. It shifts the brain's focus from a social threat, I'm being attacked, to a collaborative puzzle. And after he agreed, I built a bridge. I basically said, hey, Mark, I know we both want this project to succeed. We are on basically the same team, right? The problem here isn't you or me, it's that we have a major disagreement on how to solve this. We need to close the gap. And this is how you turn an adversary into a partner. So instead of defending your position, you invite them into the solution. So asking for their input activates their brain's reward centers and gives them a sense of status and control, which immediately de-escalates their defensiveness. So I looked right at Mark and said, you've clearly identified what you see as a major flaw. Help me understand what you're seeing that I'm missing. How would you approach this? Notice the shift. I wasn't asking him to attack my idea. I was asking him to teach his to me. The entire dynamic of that room changed. People were relieved. They let out a sigh. Now, folks, sometimes the hijack is too severe. Cortisol and adrenaline are flooding the system. So in this state, you cannot be rational at this point, okay? A circuit breaker is a strategic pause, not a retreat. It allows the stress hormones to dissipate so both parties can think clearly again. So if the first 3 principles hadn't worked, if Mark had just kept attacking, my final move would have been to say something like this. This is a critical point, okay? And I don't want to rush it. So let's all take 10 minutes and reconvene, let's say at 3 p.m. to decide the path forward. So it's not running away, it's pausing for clarity. It's taking control of the timeline. So what happened in that meeting? Well, when I asked Mark for his solution, he laid out his concern, and it was actually valid. It was a risk my team had underestimated. And because I'd validated his concern and reframed it as a shared problem, we spent the next 10 minutes together solving it. The personal attack was completely forgotten, and we found, well, a better solution. So the aha is this. You can't control their attack, but you can control your brain's reaction to it. And by controlling your own brain, you create the environment to guide theirs. De-escalation isn't a passive surrender, folks. It's one of the most powerful strategic moves you can make. Hey, if you want to keep learning how to think sharper and use your brain as a practical tool, subscribe and turn on notifications. And in the comments, I have a question for you. Which of these 4 principles is the hardest for you to use in the moment? Let's discuss it. I want to thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.